Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 871. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's all I really need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover some Formula One news, because there was some news, believe it or not. But before doing that, of course, I have to introduce my co-host, and that means I'm going all the way. It's cold here where I live, really cold, and it's snowing. But it's also cold in our nation's capital and snowing. You know her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable Grace. Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm all right. You know, I'm out there in my parka. I got, and if you hear dogs barking, this comes with the territory with 3 mini Aussies. But, with 3 dogs, there's a lot of going outside. And it's super cold. It's like, 6 below or whatever. It's cold.
I guess I should, we let, because our cats are indoors, but we let them in the garage, right? And, I guess I shouldn't complain too much. But, because, they just like to stand in the door. They just like options, right? They don't actually want to go outside. It's cold. They just don't want you to close the door either. I'm like, in or out, I don't care. Make a decision.
One way or another. I know. Yeah, it's cold.
Fix something. It is cold.
It's cold. Oh, man. Yeah. So another week in the off season, but the news keeps
on going.
Keeps on going in the off season.
Thank you. You never know, right? This is right up there with Alonso's, silly season last year, right? Like, we think it's going to be quiet.
Yeah.
Wrong.
I know. You longtime listeners know Grace and I have always, and every year we've always bemoaned the fact that there's no more Ferrari Vroom event, because that was always so much fun. If you conjure up images of Bernie Eccleston on a sled with drivers, Giancarlo Fisichella or whoever.
Awkward. On like a toboggan, right? Like on a long sled together, right? Like where they have to hold on to each other. Like, it totally looks all awkward. And I know myself,
so
like,
good.
I'm not as old as Bernie, and I'd be like, I'm going to break something. That's what's going to happen here, because anything like over 25, I'm going to break something. Bernie, I'd be like, does he come bubble wrap? That guy's going to break something. And I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah, it's like here's Ross Braun frolicking in the snow, and here's Jean Todt, out having fun in a snowball fight. It's like, it's just too good. Too good.
Yeah. I don't
know. This year, we've had a lot of news in the off season, so that's it's all good then. Yeah, it's all good.
6 more shows to go. We can do this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because as they make the season longer and longer, right? Like,
I know.
Fewer of these we got to do.
It's be 32 races, and we have 4 weeks off.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, let's jump in to the big news. The big news, as you may know, you may have heard, that it was announced this week that Gene Haas has parted ways with Gunther Steiner as team boss. And gosh, what happened?
Oh, no, it all went wrong.
It all went wrong, Grace.
Is that new? Is that like a new Gunther Steiner? I love it.
I think that's my new Gunther Steiner audio clip.
Oh, no, it all went wrong.
Right? It's good. Yeah, it's good.
That's great. Yeah. Keep it.
So it all went wrong. Apparently his contract was up for renewal, and Gene just, we just fixed the glitch, right? He didn't renew his new contract, leaving Gunther sad that he didn't have a chance to have a proper farewell to the team.
No cake. And, they just sent him home.
Yeah, no cake, no nothing. And so he was unhappy about that. He said it was over a phone call, and I'm thinking, oh man, Gunther, do you know how many drivers have been let go over phone calls and texts?
That's
the harsh world.
That's no good. Like, I guess at least it was a phone call, and it wasn't like an email or something, or like a, registered letter or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Please don't come back. Make sure you sign this so that I know you got the letter.
Yeah. Maybe he just got a couple brown boxes by FedEx with all of his personal belongings and his pictures and stuff off his desk.
Sorry about the plant.
Yeah, sorry about it. Yeah.
It's like just a pile of dirt now, right? Because it just got knocked over in shipping.
Yeah, nobody watered it over the holiday break.
Sorry, man.
Oh, man. So he didn't renew the contract. In the end, Gene said that he was embarrassed of the team's performance in finishing last, While Gunther says that investment in the team in the right areas is what was holding them back. And when you see what Williams has done, he's kind of pointing at that, right?
We could be that. I could be like the Johnsons.
We could do what they're doing, right? And then I got to here's some simple research, but I got to look and I thought, all right, so let's just take a bigger look at this whole thing and figure out where they've placed in the World Constructors Championship since being in F1. And here's the crack research that Huxley and Atticus have drummed up for us, Grace. 10th this year, last place.
Right.
Preceded by an 8th, a 10th, a 9th, a 9th, a 5th, an 8th, and an 8th.
Yeah.
So you can see a pattern, and while no one was expecting them to be the elder one, you get the impression that they're becoming a Horcrux of sorts, with part of Gene's soul trapped inside. And let's face it, the idea of Gene wearing a diadem, that conjures up some pretty interesting images in and of itself. But the point here is that there's a pattern,
right,
of finishing last or close to, except for that 1 year and fifth, right?
Almost last.
So it's clear that Gene places a lot on their Ferrari relationship, and he said that as much. And I think I was reading between the lines here a little bit. He feels that with the parts and support they get from the Italian team, they should be doing much better. And one could point to McLaren, Williams, and their Mercedes parent company as a triumvirate of success, right? So when you think of Mercedes, Grace, and they have a Mercedes, maybe a gearbox, Mercedes power unit, those kind of things, technology from Mercedes, and McLaren's made the best of it with their upgrades during last year, and they're doing really well and competing with Mercedes. You think of Williams with their engine supply now that James Vowell's over there. Now, granted, James has insider baseball because he knows how Mercedes are ran, so he would have instituted some of the most effective, best practices when he got there, cleaned up some things, and really worked closely on that car, and they didn't finish last. They did very well. So you look at that sort of combination, and then you come back and you think, well, Gene's got a point. But when you compare that with Ferrari as the parent company with the tools and the kit, then you have Sauber or Alfa Romeo and Haas. This is a triptych, if you will, and you get a very different result. And it's a good question from Gene as to why are we getting a different result that's dramatically different than what Mercedes, Williams, and McLaren are enjoying, right?
Has he never watched this sport?
Yeah, I know. I get into that in a minute, but yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
New to Formula One? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm thinking, okay, so Sauber is certainly doing something about it, right? They sold the team to Audi. So they're trying to turn their fortunes around, hired a new team boss and all of that, right? So that's what Sauber is doing about it. And now Gene is as well, but he stopped short of selling his team. So one could infer, I guess, that the branding that he gets, the exposure that he gets from Formula One is still good for him and his Haas Corporation, I'm assuming. Why else would you continue to carry that kind of loss if it wasn't? So you have Ferrari, Sauber selling to Audi or sold, and then you got Gene. I've read articles explaining what happened and more articles defending Gunther, but in the end, no matter how charismatic one is on Drive to Survive, results matter, and results equal money, right?
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because in some ways, like, James Vowles, for example, is the opposite, right? Like, he isn't the most, he's an engineer, right? He isn't the most, Steiner of personalities, but he's really doing something with that team, right? Like, so, yeah, you have to be charismatic, but that's not really going to get you somewhere in this position, right?
Right.
That's only part of it.
Right. And, the results matter. They they equal money. So I've been advocating for a change for at least the last year, I think 2 years, despite my appreciation for Gunther. I like Gunther. I don't have any issues with him. He's a great guy. You don't fire the whole team, though. You fire the coach. Look at Belichick, right? And that's what Williams, Mercedes, Sauber, and McLaren did, right? It changed at the top, changed the way we're doing things. We're gonna, they didn't go in and just fire all the team. It's key individuals, key executives to make a change, and I think that's what Gene's doing here. Gunther felt that, and I don't know that I disagree with this. Gunther felt that the team had outgrown their current facility. There was no room there, couldn't expand there. There was no investment in critical infrastructure, machine, equipment to actually do that, to compete at a higher level. And he wanted more investment for infrastructure. And to be fair, that's a similar refrain that we heard from James Vowles last year, right? Remember, he came in and said, this is a long-term project, going to take time for Williams to turn around, and right now we need some significant investment in the infrastructure, machines, and equipment to fabricate and those kind of things. Remember
you
that?
Call this a coffee pot? This isn't going to work.
Right, exactly. No, these coasters suck.
And apparently, I don't know, but the races reported that, apparently their facilities are if we watch Aston Martin's new facilities and you're like, whoa, look at how nice this is. They're the opposite. Whatever that is. It's like barely a coffee pot and, and a fax machine in their facility. So I think that seems like a very valid point that, you can't have a building full of nothing and expect me just magically make you something here either, Gene.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because you watch the announcement, you watch the reaction to the announcement. I'd been saying that Gene's got to make a change to sell the team, and now he's made a change. And the comment that I read, I think it was maybe motorsport.com. The comment I read was that Gene understood what Gunther was asking for, but he wants more results on track before he invests more money.
Well, that's not how it works.
That's the problem, right? This is a chicken and egg thing.
But not in Formula One. Maybe in IndyCar. Maybe there's other, maybe in stick and ball sports. I don't know, right? Maybe there's another place, but that's not how Formula One works. It's not to me, this sounds like he has a list that says hardware, software, wetware. Well, it's not the hardware and it's not the software, so it must be the wetware. It's more complicated than your 3 check boxes, Gene. I don't know.
Yeah.
Formula One is not. There are teams that have been, middle of the pack for a long time. Look at how much investment it took out of Aston Martin to maybe make it in the top 4, right? I don't know. You always kind of have the big
Renault's
3.
Spending.
Yeah, this chunk in the middle that can't quite seem to get over the hump, and then the best of the rest, right?
Right.
It's not like that because you've had, how many, I've been watching for 20 years. How many teams have been in best of the rest? Do you think they want to be there? They don't. You think that Minardi was just sitting on his haunches? They were not. It takes more than that to get up there.
Williams has been dragging for quite a while. Sauber's been dragging for quite a while, and they're spending a lot of money to be there. And so, and also another important part of this is that Gunther has a very good relationship with Ferrari. Yes. Remember he and Bonatto driving around little Fiat, right, and Drive Survive or whatever it was.
I love that. They should have their own show.
Yeah, so Gunther's role previously was really nurturing that Ferrari relationship. I don't know how close Gene personally is with the Ferrari organization. My hunch is he let Gunther handle most of that. So Gene's going to need to protect that very, very closely, right?
Why didn't they have more of a setup like McLaren does? We think of Zach Brown, but Zach Brown is the CEO, right? He's not the team principal, right? That's Andrea Stella, right? And so that's kind of a split. Because I could see the point of Gunther being more like a Zach Brown, right? That is where you want the personality. That is the person you want out there, getting sponsors and getting drivers, and that is what Zach Brown does so well. But he's not the team principal, right? So, right. Maybe that's a hard place to put somebody to be both the Zach Brown and, the Andrea Stadel. I almost said Seidel. That's just out of habit. Stella, together. in one position, and maybe you just can't do both.
Yeah, it's a good point. Would Gunther have been better positioned as the Zach Brown of the team?
Right.
And have a team boss like Io or whoever.
Yeah. I don't know. And I don't know enough about necessarily the inner workings of the team like that, but it just seems like he did absolutely bring something to the team, and you are absolutely losing something by getting rid of Gunther Steiner. And as much as we mock the fact that it's like, oh, like Ricciardo, like, oh, we mock the fact that, oh, you're just Drive to Survive famous. No, that is money. Like, isn't that that's a sponsor's dream? Like, we talk about that all the time, right? Like that, what makes it, talent isn't enough because you have to be able to George Russell your way through this with the sponsors. And so much of their time is spent pressing the flesh, not driving the car. So I don't know. I think maybe reorganizing, maybe Komatsu would be better as the team principal and you move Gunther to another place, but he clearly is just like, I don't know. And I don't know what Gene's interest is. Like, he seems very like distant. Like, here's a pile of money and I'll see you at the end of the year. Please make it successful. I'd like to be at least fifth. I don't, I don't know. Like, okay. It's not quite, I don't know. So I see Gene's frustration, but Gene's side of the story makes it sound like it's just like, I've been giving you everything you need, and this is how you treat me. Well, that's not it. Because Gunther doesn't want to be last. Do you think he wants to be last? Nobody wants to be last.
Right. Well,
that's not what he wants.
I also enjoyed the tweet from Rich Energy.
No, what did they?
Right here. Yeah,
oh
it's
my
Rich
goodness.
I'll read it to you. It says,
So
Avita
good.
Zane, Herr Vanker. He says, an astute move from Gene Haas. Steiner was incompetent and duplicitous. There's vastly more performance potential to be tapped with Ferrari as partners. Engineering can now be the focus.
Duplicitous. That's a great word. That's the word for the day, kid. Tomorrow, whenever you listen to this podcast, duplicitous, you have to use it at least once during the course of the day. That is a great word.
Say to a coworker, why are you being so duplicitous?
So duplicitous.
Yeah. It's Gunther Duplicitous Steiner.
That would be great, too, because I think if somebody said that to me, I'm like, is that a compliment? Like, I'm not really sure what to do with that word. Like, I guess, I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
And as if the guy in charge of Rich Energy has any legs to stand on, right? Like, who are you, dude? Like, I think we've all thrown that baby out, right? I don't know. That's great. That's great.
Exactly.
It's rich coming from you, buddy.
Yeah. So what do you think of? How do you see the Gunther thing and Gene?
I don't think that okay. So I see the point, right? You fire the coach, right? I get that, and that in this scenario, that's Gunther Steiner, but I also don't think it's quite the same as it is in stick and ball sports. Who's going to be your? I mean, I get it that Komatsu, but then somebody else has to, like, everybody has to fill forward, right? So, and Komatsu's been there as long as, Steiner is. So I don't know why that would be a change. Now, again, I don't know Steiner personally. I don't know Komatsu personally. So maybe it is a big change. Because I enjoyed, like, I think it was the first season of Drive to Survive. The whole thing was just like the two of them back and forth at each other, that Gunther would come in and say, we're doing this. And you'd see Komatsu go, we are? Okay, I guess so. You're the boss. So it was always kind of like, to read his face, he was always like, I guess that's what we're doing today. So maybe it's just taken a while to get there, but I just think this is such a, I don't know. I just think that there's more going on here, and if Gene isn't going to sell the team to Andretti or whoever, this just seems like not enough of a change, and maybe, like you were saying, maybe damaging to your relationship with Ferrari if the glue in that relationship was Steiner. Which seems to be the case, right? And so you've now totally blown that out of the water. And more that, like, I saw that, now I can't think of his name. DeResta? No, that's the race car driver. Anyway, was on loan to Haas. Like, there's a lot of the Ferrari personnel now that's going to go back to Ferrari because they're like, fine. It's not just, there's other movement, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That the Ferrari's going to be like, oh, okay, we're going to take all of our toys back and have a nice day.
Yeah, you may want to give Mercedes a call. And then he's replaced by Komatsu, as you said. Meet the new boss. Nothing like the old boss, right? Komatsu, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but he will now lead Haas into 2024 season. He was their trackside engineer and began his F1 career with a stint at BAR, BARF 1, then Lotus/Renault, and even developed the infamous or famous, depending on what you think of it, F-duct, which begat the glorious DRS.
That's right.
Woo, thanks. So he did that. He was Romain Grosjean's engineer at Renault, and then moved to Haas back in 2016 when Romain went over there. He followed him over there. He is a radical departure from the style of Gunther, and it remains to be seen how the team will adjust to that. But I will say that he has his work cut out for him, because it's very late in the day to assume control of a team and a car that's primarily designed and being fabricated, right? And also, I got to thinking, Grace, about this whole situation, because their technical guy, Simone, was let go too, right? He's a designer. Yeah. And I got to thinking about this, and, my collective, what I can remember anyway, as far as my history of F1, which goes a long way back, I was said to myself, hey, self, we can throw a lot of stones at Haas and their design, and why aren't we going faster and blah, 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 blah. They have the same power unit as Ferrari, so why aren't they performing at approximate levels of Ferrari, right? Same could be said of Sauber. Right. So I went back, and I've always, since day one, had this nagging feeling about their relationship with Delara. Because I happen to know and remember that Delara is not necessarily a name dripping with Formula One success. So I went back this weekend, and I thought, I'm going to look that up, make sure I'm right on that. They're the fabricator for IndyCar, F2, F3. They've got good success there, of course, when you're the fabricator for those series. But they don't have a strong result in F1 over the years, and never really have had much success in winning races or titles. F1 is just a higher level, and I wonder if Haas is ever going to get a race-winning chassis designed from Delara. There just isn't a lot of history of success for the Italian company in Formula One.
Maybe it's just a good stepping stone, right? Your first year in, this is a way to get, we don't give you customer cars, but you could do this, right? And it's a way to kind of get a leg up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, to that point, I even think when they first announced in that first year, Grace, I remember us talking about it, and it's Delara, and they're going to get a chassis, and they're doing listed parts and everything. And Gene and Gunther in particular, because kind of his concept, this is the way to do it. And the other teams were a little touchy about the whole, listed parts thing, because they kind of came out of the box pretty competitive. And so it was like, well, no, wait a minute. Then it kind of that brought up the whole customer car. What's a customer car? What's not? But they were using Delara, and I kind of felt at the time that's a good way in to do listed parts and a deal with Ferrari. But I thought maybe over time they'd start to fabricate their own chassis.
Exactly.
And they haven't. And I want to say, I could be wrong. This must be hindsight's 2020. But I feel like you and I kind of discussed that at the time, that Delara is a good move to get you in the series, get you a decent chassis, build that team, and like Frank Williams, eventually build your own.
There has to be a reason nobody else has done it.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, I guess it's just, to me, there seems to be like, if Delara was really good at this thing, why isn't anybody else using it? It's not that they've never thought about it. They're not like, oh, I've never looked under that stone before, right? So that's never really been an avenue, as you noted, for anybody else. So I think it's a good way to get a leg up, to get a start, but then you got to start building your own.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it's going to work for you.
I don't know. I mean, even if they change and Komatsu takes over and it's engineering, they make some improvements and aero improvements or whatever it is, but a lot of that's being driven out of Delara. Not to say that Haas wouldn't have input on their aero, right. I'm sure they do, but I don't know. Is that a winning combination? Has the listed parts gambit run its course with a customer chassis, right? Instead of a purpose-built chassis by the team, who knows every deficit of the chassis and what's going on and what's not working, right? And they would relay that to Delara, of course, but something isn't correlating there. I don't know why. There's been a lot of comments also about this team changing from a Gunther style with relationships and people to a more introverted engineering style or a technical focus. But I'm not sure I'm 100% bought into the challenges this can sometimes bring. Admittedly, it's a different style. You have to consider that if Gene wasn't going to spend on investment on infrastructure, Komatsu's working with the same hand Gunther was dealt. The question is, can he engineer success from a turnip, basically? Chances are, as James Vowles has said, it's a long-term project that requires investment. Yeah.
Right. You need at least 2 turnips, right?
Yeah.
I think that I absolutely. And I think that first of all, I want to know what that phone call was like. Who let Komatsu know? Did Gene call him first and then call Steiner? Did Steiner call? Like, how did...
Yeah,
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that phone call, more than a fly on the wall for the, Gunther Steiner call, because I think I can imagine what the Gunther Steiner call was like, but I really want to know what was his reaction? What was Komatsu's reaction? Like, I guess?
Yeah.
Can I have some time to think about it? Can I say no? Like, well, I don't know. I just think that phone call would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Also, do yourselves some favor. There's a clip of an IndyCar event where somebody asked Romain Grosjean about Haas and, the Steiner result. And the eye roll he makes is like, I'm like, oh man, I just need that playing in like a meeting or something and that's how Grace feels about this, because he's just like, oh my God, those people. But of course, like, right, Komatsu's his guy, it was his race engineer. So he really just kind of like rolls his eyes and then talks about how much, he's really a big Komatsu fan. This is great for him, and I'm glad he's going to be in charge of Haas. But that that whole body eye roll that he does speaks volumes. And yeah, so it's great. I'll send it to you, Todd. But people need to find this. It was.
Yeah.
I'm like, I saved a meme of it because that's for sure going to be used.
Yeah.
And also, maybe this is just the Madden curse, because they put Gunther on the front of F1 Manager this year because it's him, Toto Wolff, and Christian Horner. So I don't know. Maybe the Madden curse is a real thing in Formula One too. So
maybe.
Watch out. Whoever gets put on there next year.
I mean, Haas has been in P5 at some point. And so I was thinking about this. Well, I'll invest. It's you start producing some results, and I'll invest.
Yeah.
There's companies I've worked for that are like that and say, hey, we got this idea. Okay, well, go out and sell a bunch of them, and if you can sell a bunch of them, then we might invest in it.
We'll talk.
And look, I do have deference. Not everybody has an appetite in investing ahead of revenue, and fair enough. I get it.
Sure.
But then it made me wonder, well, you've been in P5, but for that kind of comment, what are the KPIs that Gene's looking at before spending? It's a chicken and egg situation, as I'm sure Gunther explained. But even if Gene had invested, to be fair, I'm also not 100% convinced that Gunther was the guy who could have made the most, brought the team back to P5 or better with that increased investment. I'm not sure that would have happened, right?
It's complicated, always.
Yeah, it is.
Or anybody would do it, right? Otherwise, we'd all be able to do this.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, what are the KPIs then? So what does that mean? Mm-hmm. What does Komatsu have to target in order to get the investment that surely he's aware that the team needs? He and Gunther would have talked about it ad nauseum.
All the time, right? I don't know. He's just like... it's not drive to survive. It's just survive to survive now.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, every week. Let's just hope this isn't the week that Gene just decides he's had enough.
It should have been send a voicemail to survive.
Oh, something. Better call Gene. I still think that should be a show idea.
Yeah. So Komatsu is going to have to do more with the same or less, and there aren't many who have or can do that. I mean, I think of
That's hard.
names that pop up. James Vowles obviously is doing that. Ottmar and Fernley over at Force India combo, they did it. Pat Simmons did it. Gary Anderson done it. Adrian Newey, Ross Braun, Rory Byrne. Just a few names that jumped to my mind about doing, a
They're
lot.
all big
with
hitters, right?
limited. Yeah. They're few and far between, though, right? And there's also a part of me that wonders how insulated Gene was from his F1 operation. If he feels that they can get better results with the same or less investment, this is unlike NASCAR, and it takes a big investment to not only gain performance, but keep in mind, you have to gain it, you have to keep that performance, and you have to improve on it, because it isn't simply because your team may not be doing their best, but the goalposts are constantly changing with competition outthinking you and out-developing you again and again. So I'm not sure why he isn't cashing out while F1 is at its high water mark. I'm not quite sure.
And you could just sell it. Sell it to Andretti.
To me, and what's funny, Grace, I don't know if you've noticed this, but you kind of see the reaction on social media. You see the commentary and editorials. I think, I don't know if Gene felt like him coming out. I don't think there's a part of Gene that didn't think this would be easy, because he knows Gunther's a fan favorite. So he had to have known this is going to be difficult. We're going to take some incoming on this. We need to get out ahead of it. And his style of getting out of it and saying, I'm embarrassed of the team, embarrassed to finish last, and, we need to change some things. And so the contract was up and I didn't renew it. Fair enough. That's probably exactly true. But it doesn't make good for a good press release, right?
It doesn't, and especially because Gunther, because he was at, I guess they just had the Autosport International show, right? I saw Sky Sports News, reporting from that. And, he didn't throw Gene under the bus, but he made it pretty clear how he was feeling about this whole situation, right? And he's a professional, right? He George Russelled it. He knows what he's doing, right? And he knows he would like another job in Formula One, I'm sure. So, right, got to kind of play it. But it was very clear, right? And I think the thing is that there's nothing Gene can, it's like me trying to be up against somebody, a Zach Brown. Well, Zach Brown's going to win. That guy's a professional. He knows what he's doing. He's always going to be able to get more sponsors than I am. So I just think Gene is always going to look like flat-footed, even because that's why Steiner's popular. It's not just Drive to Survive. I think that's made him more popular. But I think we would all be like, oh, Steiner, I think we had a, I don't know, affinity is the wrong word, but he's the guy you always wanted in the press conference or something. He was always the guy that's going to, come on now, Christian, is that really what you think? He's always that guy. And,
Yeah, he's always joking around and
it's like Fred Vasseur, right? He has a personality.
Yeah, right.
I don't need Drive to Survive to tell me that, right? I watch this sport.
I kind of feel like, watch this space. I could see him popping up on Sky Sports as a common part of their commentary crew.
Be great. That would be
wouldn't
great.
it? Because somebody's gonna nab him just to suck up, to hoover up all of that Drive Survive fame out of him, right? And he's got a lot of people love him because of DTS, and so you could see Sky jumping in there and picking him up. I don't know how he would do on a mic commenting on the Formula One. Would be interesting, but
maybe run him on a delay and
put him on a delay. That might be good.
It can't be worse than Danica Patrick, so let's go for it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they've got a few on that crew that, I'd be willing to roll the dice with Gunther.
It's not necessarily her fault. I think they really have set her up to fail, but it has to be better than that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Enough on the Haas. Let us know what you guys think about the Haas situation. I'm intrigued by what you think. I feel like it'll just be interesting to see where Gunther lands. I also am intrigued that he chose Komatsu. Well, not because Komatsu doesn't deserve it. Not a smart guy. I don't know a whole lot about IO, but. It is also interesting that you had Ottmar out there and you had Alan Permain out there, right? That you could have picked who are two pretty seasoned veterans.
You
And
have-
Ottmar has a long history of doing well with very little, right?
Yeah, but it's also 6 weeks until testing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think and maybe Ottmar's learned his lesson. I don't know. Like, I think that's a pretty tall
maybe.
order. I think if you're going to wait till this late, assuming it was a surprise, right? There was no like, hey, at the end of the season, we're going to kind of like push Gunther out, and so Komatsu take some notes, right? Or something like, there was no plan that we know of. So I think it would be hard to bring in Alan Permain or, you know, any name that's a professional. Not that they couldn't do it, but 6 weeks is a tall order.
It is, and for continuity's sake, you know, probably just promoting Komatsu was a right decision.
Maybe
but, yeah.
So maybe I would think like 2015, or 2015. What world am I living in? 2025, maybe with 2026, right? Like maybe then, you know, bringing in somebody new when you have a little bit more time. So maybe this is just a Band-Aid year. I don't know. Maybe it's just a test. Maybe if Komatsu does great and gets him into fifth, then he's the guy. Good luck.
All right. In other Formula One news, I've labeled this one "Hold My Beer."
Nice.
The Spanish beer brand Estrella Galicia, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but apologies. They've left Ferrari after 3 years, and they're returning to McLaren. Now, this is a good move by Zach Brown, and it's what he's awesome at, as you've previously alluded to a couple times. It's interesting because the brand has been associated with Carlos Sainz since his GP3 days in 2013. So this is quite the departure, unless they know something we don't. No, I don't see that happening. Just saying. But apparently Ferrari made it clear that they wouldn't be staying as it inked a deal with the parent company of Pironi, and now Pironi is leaving Aston Martin to join Ferrari.
Right.
It's non-alcoholic.
I don't know why it's such a thing now, but
I don't know, whatever. Now, if I'm honest, I don't really care about this story unless Chimay, Westmalle, or West Vleteren was to join a team. Then I'm all in. I'm thinking, come
that
on,
would be great.
Belgium. Get involved, Grace. Just think about it. Monks and F1. What could be better?
Bring back Stoffel. It would be wonderful.
Yes, bring back Stoffel. Yes.
So
He comes in with Chimay, or he comes in with West Vleteren. You know, it's a Trappist beer. You know, it's perfect.
It would be great. I think that would. I'm here for that. I would vote for that. So, I also don't know if you. So have you ever had a Radler? This is a beer I've only recently discovered. So it's like a shandy, right? Which is beer and lemon. You know, it's like a Hefeweizen. It's some sort of like a light kind of summer beer, right? With lemonade. So that's a shanty. So what a Radler is it's just like a shanty, but it's any kind of like fruit juice, not just lemonade. So I drank, a friend got married in Detroit, and this is all I had because that's what's nice about a shanty is if you're going to be there for a while, it's a little easier to day drink a shanty than it is to day drink, you know, a Guinness. So we're going to be here for a while. So I was like, oh, Radler, I tried this. So anyway, I just wanted to give a little shout out that if these guys would also like to get into Formula One, I'd be all on that too. So it's Two Pitchers is the name. Two Pitchers, like they're baseball pitchers, not like beer pitchers. But anyway, that's the name of the brand is Two Pitchers, and they make a grapefruit Radler that I'm obsessed with. And but the you know how like grapefruit kind of has like a pucker to it, but the like beer like smooths it out, so it's like all the joy of grapefruit without any of that kind of can get you with grapefruit. So I highly recommend it. Now it still tastes like grapefruit, so if you don't like grapefruit, not for you. But if you like grapefruit, I'm telling you, grapefruit Radler is the way to go. This is your beer for the summer.
Okay, and I got a shout out.
Perfect.
Now everybody knows, you know, when I started working for a Belgian company, they turned me into a beer snob.
Yes, that's right.
But I was out at dinner, a rare night out with my wife and I, and we were at a place, a favorite haunt of hers, which is an Irish pub, and there was a beer, Casey Beer Company in Kansas City. Casey Beer Company makes a brew that's called Winterbach, and I'm holding this up for our YouTube people so you can see it. Winterbach.
Okay.
It was actually really good. It was fun. Got a fun finish, kind of a sweet, fun finish. It was good. Yeah.
Is
So
it
there
like
you
a
go. There's
dark, like a heavier beer or
a little, yeah, a little
Okay.
bit, kind of good winter, yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. There are your beer recommendations.
We got you covered.
Got you covered.
So you
man.
got something. If you like beer, you may have got nothing else from the show, but you got some
right.
recs. So
okay,
there you
wait
go.
a minute. Westmalle, Chimay, West Fleeteren, Winterbach by KC Beer, and Rattler. Got it.
Yeah, check out the
right.
Rattlers. I'm telling you, I'm
go.
obsessed now. It's good.
All right, and finally, in our other chunk of news before we get to Alvin's Cats, is an AI spokesperson, or a spokeswoman in this case. Mahindra Racing was forced to axe their AI-generated social media influencer called Ava due to backlash on social media platforms. However, the project was left DOA with fans criticizing the plan en masse on social media. Many were frustrated that the team had chosen to invent a person to promote the team rather than hiring somebody real. Others were very upset that they had made it a woman. Well, this is the team that's been, publicly championing more women in
Right.
motorsport and hiring more drivers and more women at the team, and they've been very vocal about that. And yet they go out and make a fake AI woman to be the
Right.
spokesperson. Others felt the team talk about championing women in motorsport, but then to create that was a real affront. Mahindra team principal Frederick Bertrand failed to apologize to fans, but did confirm
Surprise.
that they have discontinued the program, saying nurturing diversity, inclusion, and innovation is at the heart of Mahindra Racing. Our AI influencer program was designed with this innovation in mind. Your comments hold tremendous value. We have listened, understood, and decided to discontinue the project. Now, having said all that, go ahead, Grace.
Insert Roman Grosjean eye roll right here. For
I
me,
roll.
but yeah.
boy.
Oh, yeah. Sure. We're not going to apologize, but we recognize, clearly, I don't know why you didn't see this. Why did you have to put this out there to see this coming? Really? Nobody mentioned this. So that's never the case. Somebody mentioned it and you ignored it, and then everybody else said, and they went, I tried to tell you that this was going to fall in your face. Why would you do this? Why was this a good idea?
Yeah, it makes you wonder when they ran all the SWOT analysis and decision matrix, what happened there. Now, in full disclosure, I am a person that works in the tech industry. I just got back from CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, where
Did you bring me that? Did you bring me that Bugatti? Because that Bugatti was pretty sweet.
Wasn't that nice? And
That
they
was
had
nice.
the F1 safety car out there.
Yeah.
That was nice.
saying.
They had Max Verstappen's steering wheel over at the Siemens booth. That was nice. Yeah, there's a lot of nice stuff out there, Grace.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I thought
That was gifts
they
are
had
nice.
these like half eggshell chairs that you sit in, and it completely envelops your body, and they tilt back, and you're like laying in there, and it totally massages and warms. I thought you and Flip need those.
That sounds nice.
You and Flip could just sit there, tilt those babies back. You could game, watch TV. Oh,
Meetings would be so much better. What was
Wouldn't
that?
it? Wouldn't
I'm
it?
sorry.
you
I'm
could
sorry.
podcast from that thing. You'd be over there completely out. You'd be out.
That would be it. Grace. Nope.
Yeah. Nope.
Gone. I'm sitting in my eggshell chair. Yeah.
So I'm in this industry, and AI was the top subject of the
sure.
entire show. And so I'm very interested in this for many reasons, apart from the argument of hiring a person or creating one. No mystery that AI is now managing many of the call centers for large corporations where people once existed, right? Mm-hmm. It's taken over big chunks of industry like that.
Yeah.
What I did see at CES, I could go another 45 minutes and give you guys a debrief of the show. But but speaking specifically on AI was everywhere. But because that, I would say that there was some AI that was effective and very impactful in its inclusion in certain products. And then there was a whole bunch of AI that was Me Too and bordering on ridiculous. It wasn't really AI per se. I mean, yes, but not really. What is it really gaining?
Is it like
Anyway.
Like social media went through that. Like
Yeah.
everything was social. Like I remember when people would say, well, "Why don't we do a survey over Facebook?"
Yeah.
And you want it to be representative of who? People who use
yeah.
Facebook, right? Like
Right.
this is not a way to capture a representative sample of people,
No.
right? And so but it was always well, we got to do Facebook, right? Like so I should have said MySpace. That would have been even funnier, but I think that
Hi, Tom.
hey. So I think that sometimes people just that becomes the like, I don't know. Did you say AI? And it's almost like it's like Charlie Brown's parent or adults,
Yeah,
right? And it just becomes all management here is wah, 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 AI, right? And whoever said AI wins, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense or not. They just know AI is what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I don't know, like APIs were a big thing for a while, and everybody like, well, we have an API. That's fine. That's great. This is not like. Congratulations, you have an API. I don't know, what am I supposed to be excited for you? That's great. Seems like a basic thing we should all be doing here. So anyway,
And
AI is maybe that thing now.
Ian, one of our patron supporters that's in our audience tonight, said AOL chat forever.
You've got
there you
mail.
go.
Exactly, Ian.
Maybe we'll
AOL
don't
chat
even know.
forever. AOL rocks, man.
That's right.
If I went down to some of the old boxes I have in the basement, I bet I could find an AOL disc,
Oh, I'm sure.
somewhere
I'm sure
down
we
there,
have one
but,
in our basement.
So, yeah, no mystery the AI is managing call centers and taking big chunks of industry out. It's an
Sure.
interesting debate as AI is now powering many platforms and systems from F1's own sponsor, Salesforce, right?
Yes.
So F1 itself is using AI to team their systems and much more. I would say much more so than Mahindra is using AI to create an image of a person with content generated pursuant to the team's direction. That I guess that could be understandable and low-hanging fruit as far as a way to engage AI thinking. Its fans would really enjoy the program and application of AI. Clearly they were wrong, though. But there's a part of me that feels like, well, were they ahead of the curve? Were they just off the curve? Does it make sense? In today's climate and economic climate, probably, no doubt that didn't help. It's interesting, and I don't really have an opinion necessarily strongly one way or another because I saw a hell of a lot of AI out at CES, and I questioned a lot of it, and others I thought, no, that's a really cool application. But I'm just wondering how all of you feel. Was it a bridge too far in that sense? Apart from the issue of not hiring someone and making it a woman, Grace and I were talking about the podcast. They could have taken the high road and made Dobie the house elf or something, or as you said, Clippy, right? Or anything they could have made.
Throwbacks, right?
Throwbacks.
Bring back
right?
Clippy from Microsoft Word, right? Like,
But for them to sit down, okay, we're going to make an AI spokesperson. We're going to make her a beautiful woman. Oh, wait, what?
when you're all like, I mean, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So-
That just seems like.
It's a miss, but I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, there's all kinds of haterade, and they canceled the thing, but AI is a huge tent from platform applications to generative art. And I'm curious of where you guys stand, and what do you think? It was a bad move, but was it a bad move to try to engage AI in this portion of motorsport, as far as their, a way to do this? I kind of feel like in a lot of ways they could use AI for their racing systems and not creating a generated image of a female and then going into GPT. Let me say this in English. Chat GPT, and having them, poop out some commentary and calling it a day. I feel like that's low-hanging fruit. So anyway, I'm curious what you guys all think about it. But anyway,
It would roll out words like duplicative,
duplicitous. Ava was duplicitous, Grace. That was what the problem was.
I don't know. I mean, maybe
You know?
you're right, but I think you're right. Right? There's sort of two issues here. One is there a good use of a good application of AI, and why was it a person? Why was it a woman? Like these are there is some like I can see this discussion having like two different points here because I think a lot of us agree like your execution perhaps wasn't great, but maybe the idea was good. I don't know.
And in
Your
particular, I
execution
think-
was not great.
Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
Right. So I think that's
But I guess what I'm wondering is, how do you guys feel about AI being used in the marketing, advertising, branding side of a motorsport team as it applies to social media platforms, generative content, those kind of things? Do you feel strongly, apart from the misfire with the women and all of that, do you feel like there's a place in that, or do you still feel like they should hire a person to do that? Do you feel that the content may be, disingenuous or duplicitous? See how I did that? Yes. I don't know. What do you think, Grace?
I was thinking too, is that there's some part of, like you were saying, like, call centers. Well, that's, I can't see that person. And now it's the point, like, even if you're chatting with something, you sometimes can't tell if it's a real person or not. Great, they're gone from the, like, hi, Grace, how are you today? Right? Like, it's not like this, and even like listening to record, it's similar to, like, sometimes I've watched YouTube videos, and it takes me a moment to figure out, is that a video game or an actual, like, race footage, right? And a lot of, like, the race does it all the time, right? Instead of trying to find the race footage, they just create it in a video game, right? Like, and then Hamilton does this thing, and you can watch what happens, but it's a video game, right? These things are so close together now. But by having this is like AI in front of the curtain. And maybe that's part of it too, right? We're all used to kind of AI behind the curtain. And then the real people are in the front of the curtain, even if we are just using ChatGPT and going, I need to send a letter to Todd. Okay, that sounds great, right? But it's still a real person that's delivering that information. But something like that is now removing that, like, curtain and putting that AI right in your face. Like, this is always computer generated. We're silenced, right? Like, that's what we're moving towards here.
By your command. Yeah, but when you look at it, I think, what was the numbers? 48% of AI decision makers at corporations are ready to engage and willing to engage AI for solutions in their business, while 60% of the workers will use their own personal AI to do their tasks. So this, so you're 48 in decision makers, 60s in rank and file, and you got to think, you could see this. I think you could bring up a great point. Either we're in front of the curtain or behind it. To that very point, the podcast platform that we're recording on uses AI to create my show notes. And it's super handy because at the end of the show, while I'm editing audio and video, it's over there scanning the entire recording and creates all of the closed caption, and then creates a whole show outline for me. Automatically,
Although I love how it interprets Parc Fermé differently every time. So I do enjoy that.
Yeah,
Parc Fermé, Parc for Maple. We've had several iterations. I enjoy it every time.
So I'll try it this time. Parc Fermé. So there you go.
Maybe it doesn't speak French. I don't know. I enjoy it. But you're right. And so I think that there is a real place for it. I mean, I use it all the time, right? And to even just like even when you're like, oh, I need kind of like a thesaurus sometimes, like, I need another word, or like I need it to be resume speak or something. Like, I would just say, I write reports. That's not what people write in the resumes, right? They write this like super, fancy wording, and you're just like, oh, so you write reports, right? Because that's not what people write. Right. And so if I just write, I write reports, I sound like the dummy, even though mine is really plain language, right? I write reports.
That's so people ask me that. It's like, well, you don't for work, you don't go over and have it do your reports. And it's like, well, no, I'm such an idiot. I'm over on AI saying, create a picture of an Australian shepherd on a snowy mountaintop, a black tri with blue eyes. And then I make it, and I go, oh, that's cute. That looks like Buckley. And I send that to my daughters, and they're like, eye rolling. Oh, my God.
Okay. Yeah, because your dad, right? Like, who let dad have this technology?
Stop.
I think, but what I enjoyed, like my family, last time we were all together, we, because you can tell, like, write a nice letter to my aunt. Well, my family is not that loving, right? If somebody sent me if my aunt called me and was like, oh, Grace, I love you. So, are you sick? Do you have cancer? Like, I question everything if you're that loving to me, right? We laughed so hard because if anybody in my family ever sent me a card that was what ChatGPT came up with, I question everything. You're dying because why else are you being that loving? That is just not the way we roll. But it was enjoyable. It was very funny.
Yeah, let us know what you guys
Right.
think. I'm real intrigued by AI, its use. Not
I think that's
certainly behind the curtain, as Grace said, in their systems, their platform, their setup. There's a host of things it can be doing. But I'm kind of curious how you feel about it, you being used in social media outreach, marketing, branding, and advertising. That's what I'm curious about.
okay.
All right, let's do. Well, I guess it's time for some Albin's Cats, right? I mean, it's generally that time.
Oh no, it all went wrong.
All right.
That is never not going to crack me up. Anyway,
Yeah.
that and the Grosjean eye roll, great stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think
I was thinking of all the sound bites I could use with Gene and Gunther. It was
I
like,
think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
yeah. Or the old favorite.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
That's
Yes.
right. I
So
like the
anyway,
new one.
Albin's Cats. What do you got for us, Grace?
Okay, so I will try to condense this relatively long story to as compact as possible, which is not my strength. So, as I mentioned, right, Flip and I are going to the MotoGP race in Austin, and so, but I don't have any merch. I don't have any MotoGP merch. I don't have a lot of Formula One merch because it's expensive, and MotoGP merch is especially boring in my opinion. So it's like, oh, I don't. Do I just want to look like I'm wearing a Ducati shirt? Oh, that's not really
You
that.
get a
interesting.
Valley bucket hat.
Well, I mean, so, right, but Rossi's the only person that has any sort of creative merchandise. And
Yeah,
Morbidelli
right.
has some creative merchandise, but most of them it's just like, the difference between the Ducati shirt and Pecco Bagnaia shirt is one has his number, one doesn't. It's the same damn shirt. So, like, not that interesting of wear. But I'm like, we're going to the race. I should be a little more, like, find some stuff, and everything's on sale right now. So anyway, we were looking today, and so Pedro Acosta is Moto2 champion. He's coming into MotoGP this year, right? Rookie. And so we were like, the race had an interview with him, and it was great. I'm really, I mean, he's been great on the track. I really just loved this interview because he sounds like he's a 90-year-old man, even though he's like 12, right? He just knows a lot about the sport. He knows how this works. It was just like, I'm all in now on Pedro Acosta. So we're like, well, let's see what merch he has, right? So I understand that he is Spanish, and so that's probably the original language of his website that has then gone through a translator.
Yeah.
It was great. And so the shirt sizes were hilarious because there were things like 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, yes, medium, I, XL, XXL, and 3X. What is yes? I really wanted to pick yes just to see what I would get. What does yes get you?
Yes.
And what if I'm like, I assume is a 4 year, 8 year, 12-year kids shirts? What if I'm 7 years old? What shirt do I get? Right? Like, I and then of course the I, which we figured out is actually an L, but I's and L's, if it's a lowercase L looks like an I, right? But I was like, is that my intermediate wear? Like, in case I don't know what the weather's going to be, I get my I shirt out? I don't know. So that was great. But I think that my actual and then the states, so right, you put in your United States and it gives you the drop down list of states.
Yeah.
So it lists like we're in Maryland, so we're like Mississippi, Missouri, mountains. Is that how I send stuff to Todd? Mountains.
I'm in the Ozark Mountains.
Right, mountains. It'll find Todd. Nebraska, snowfall. What is that? It was just so funny. Like, I really just want to pick these things. And where does mountains go? Where does that take it? Right.
See,
But
he
my
could use some AI.
I don't know. I laugh so. But my favorite, and again, I say this as somebody who once took German, and I couldn't figure out the difference between I flew, because in German it's a different verb for flew like a bird versus fly like an airplane. And so I kept telling my German teacher that I was flying home. But
Like
I
a bird.
used, bird, right,
Yeah,
instead of like
right.
an airplane, and she just laughed, and I couldn't figure it out until she went, "You mean like this?" And I went, "Oh, no, not like that," right? So I totally get this. But my favorite was there was a shirt that was out of stock, and it was listed as exhausted. It's exhausted.
Nice,
You can't get
it's
that
exhausted.
shirt exhausted.
It's tired,
Which
it's worn out.
which is the right word, right? I get why exhausted is what she
Yeah.
came up with, but that's not how an English speaker would use the word exhausted. But from now on, like
Right.
at the grocery store, Flip, they're out of your bread. It's exhausted, right?
It's
like,
exhausted.
sorry, the bread's exhausted. You're gonna have to pick
Yeah.
something else. So
They're
also your
they're
word for the week.
They're
Exhausted.
so exhausted. They're tired of pleasing humanity. I'm so done.
Also, we have is XXL. Everything else is exhausted. So if you wanted that yes size,
Yes.
you don't have that. I literally was like, I laughed so hard. So
That's
exhausted.
Awesome.
It's not out of stock anymore. It's
There
exhausted.
you go, exhausted.
There
This
you go.
podcast is almost exhausted.
Almost. Many
Almost.
people, maybe like 5 minutes in, were like, "Oh, I'm exhausted."
Oh, I'm exhausted with this podcast. My gosh. It's been going how
Welcome
long?
to the off season.
17 years? You guys.
Oh, my.
So dumb.
Yeah, what are we on? Like 873? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, 872 will be next week.
Oh.
And I've got another 50 some odd interview podcasts. And
Yeah.
a bunch. 17
busy.
years. So let's see. You ready for some no shit headlines? Here we go.
Always.
Number one, people expect. Let me try this in English. People
Sure.
expect less from U.S. F1 drivers.
Okay.
Who knew?
People.
Logan
know.
Sargent said that.
Logan Sargent. Oh, about himself.
Well, there you go, Logan. You know what he's doing? He's right-sizing expectations. There you go.
That's my whole
I
job
applaud
some
that.
days.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty good. That's good. It was weird, but then if he's the one that said it, then it's a little less weird.
People expect less from U.S. government workers. That's what you should say, Grace.
Yeah. I look forward to that job.
Anything can happen. That's all right. People expect less. People expect less from people in the technology industry. That's what I'm going to
That's
say. Next
They're
up,
exhausted.
they are. Next up, I was an F1 heiress with a jet in back garden, but lost it all. I ended up on 60-pound benefit and got rejected from McDonald's. You know what that is?
I don't even know.
Oh, no, it all went wrong.
You talk about it all going wrong. Wow.
Back garden. I don't like your backyard.
In her
or
back
what?
garden. Yeah, it's in the UK. They don't have backyards, they have gardens out there. I don't know. I guess the entirety of the UK citizenry are gardeners. Who knew?
I don't know. I'm now gonna refer to that as my back garden.
Yeah.
I'll be
it's
in the
my
back garden if you need me
I'll be in the back garden.
with the
Yeah.
dogs.
See, in America, it's a backyard. Some backyards have a garden in them where people
Right.
plant things, but the entire backyard is not the back garden. But anyway,
That's right.
all right. That was Innes Ireland's daughter, by the way.
Okay.
Let's see. And finally, Alpine F1 declaration about Ottmar Szafnauer months on from sacking speaks volumes. They're still kicking him over there.
You know, what did Ottmar do to all these people?
What did he ever do to you?
You know what? We need your like, because you have several like leave Todd alone kind of quotes, right? Like, it just needs to be leave Ottmar alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
You know,
No,
what did Ottmar do to you people? Let it go.
I agree.
Hey, what happened?
What happened?
No,
Why are you picking Ottmar?
Ottmar of all people, that is probably what he's saying. What
I'm sure it is.
happened?
I'm sure it is. Poor Ottmar.
Hero to zero very quickly.
Yeah, it was. All right. That does it.
All right.
I'm exhausted, Grace.
Me too.
Let's get out of this podcast, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, huge thank you to our Patreon supporters who have joined us live for this podcast. How about that?
Pretty
We've
great.
got some wonderful Patreon supporters. You guys are the best, and it's always great reading your commentary. I love when everybody joins and we're recording and I keep an eye on the chat and your guys' interaction with comments and thoughts that we say, and that it prompts you, and you guys have some great comments and thoughts. So love that. You too can join us live during the recording. If you want to be a Patreon supporter, you can do that by going over to our website, theparcfermé.com, and on the right-hand side, I believe, it has a support us link, and down at the bottom, at the very bottom of the website, on the left-hand side, I think it has a support us, and you can click on that and support us in multiple different ways, multiple different levels. But we could not and would not do this podcast if it wasn't for our Patreon supporters. And love. This is one thing. It's had its issues. This is one thing I do love about this platform is that our Patreon supporters can join us during the live recording of this, interact with us, ask questions, and apologies if we didn't get to your questions, but anyway, it's great to have you guys here. If you like the podcast, go over to iTunes or your favorite podcast player and give us a good review. Show us some love over there. If you're watching this on YouTube, do me a huge favor. Hit the like and subscribe and the bell icon. It really helps us out. And we have a lot of people who comment, which is great on the YouTube videos, and it's great to have you here. But do us a favor and subscribe. That helps us out, and we'd really appreciate it. Until next week, when we come back to do it all over again and find out what other fallout has happened. Are there more head cutting? Is Gunther going to do something crazy? Who knows what's going to happen, but we'll find out.
It'll all happen tomorrow because we recorded
It'll
today.
all happen, yeah. It seems like every time we record a podcast, whatever we've talked about happens on the Tuesday. Inevitable. It happens every time.
Yep.
So anyway, until next week when we come back to do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camera, saying so long, Grace.
That's
See
it,
you next
man.
week.
Game over, man. It's game over.